Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode, we have Curt Pires on to talk about You've Been Canceled over at Mad Cave Studios, as well as a little bit about Indigo Children, It's Only Teenage Wasteland, and much more. Before we dive into this episode, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as capesandtights.com. Be sure to subscribe, rate, review, all those things over at Apple, Spotify, and all your major podcasting platforms. This episode is with Curt Pires talking You've Been Canceled, an upcoming book over at Mad Cave Studios. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, Curt. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm guessing a busy day, like always for you, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm busy, but it's always like awesome to just carve out some time to hang out and talk comics, especially when people like yourself, like I was saying to you before we got on here, you got all the comics and stuff behind you. It's like the least I can do is hop on here and talk a little shit with you,
Exactly, absolutely. I mean, it's funny that how it is that in the world of comic books, you almost have to self-promote. We talked a little bit also before we started recording about the cool job that Mad Cave does sending some stuff out to me, so I can have a poster to hang on the wall. I have stickers. I have more Mad Cave stickers that I don't even know what to deal with all the Mad Cave titles and so on. But still, as a comic creator, it's not like your job is done when you stop writing. You don't just like send it to the publishers and say, okay, done. You got to promote it and be out there on the circuit trying to get people to buy the comic book as well.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a huge part of my job, right? Between launching this book and Indigo Children, it's like I've spent so much time in the last couple of months just on marketing these books and doing it on top of the writing and everything else. Just, frankly, I'm just kind of exhausted right now. So looking forward to I'm just finishing up the push for this book, and then I'm looking forward to taking a bit of a break because it's like just very easy to get burnt out doing all this stuff.
It's funny though, because I was like, writing for the big two, a lot of times it's just like the book sells itself in a sense. Like, a Superman book's going to sell itself because it's a Superman book. Writers connected to it will help push the book in a sense. I mean, I'm pretty sure, the Batman books did pretty well when James was writing Batman and when, certain people, Scott Snyder's writing Batman, those books move a little bit better than maybe someone else. But when you're creator owned or independent, you become a writer, a marketer, a promoter, and all that stuff all in one. So it can be tiring, but you've been canceled. Is this book, are you done writing the book or are you still continuing to write it as you're going right now?
I'm done writing it. We actually just got the last pages of art in from Kevin literally over the weekend. So the writing and art for the book's all done, and the last issue just needs to be colored and lettered. But we're in really good shape and work on this book for quite a while. So
That's awesome.
yeah, everything, all the writing's done on my end, but I always tweak things before we send them out just to kind of try and get it as close to perfect as possible. So there's still some work to be done, but largely I'm wrapped my part.
That's awesome. And so right now, I mentioned a little bit, you have like 3 titles that are either on the market or about to be on the market currently at the moment that are pretty popular. But do you think back when you first started writing comic books that you'd have 3 different comic books at 3 different publishers out at the same time?
Well, yeah, it's definitely like a interesting moment because I work on the book so far in advance, right? So for me, I've just been working on these books so long, and I'm just happy to finally get them out. But having the 3 books out, and then we have a lot of the trade paperbacks of the books I've been doing at ComiXology are starting to come out, right? So last week we had Lost Falls come out, and so it's like now we have finally a lot of this stuff I've been working on for the last couple of years is coming out, and I think if anything, just the books all coming out made me realize how much I kind of missed having the books out in the comic shops because I was doing the ComiXology stuff for a while, and it's not quite the same, but it's been fun. It's been a lot of work, but it's cool. People seem to be digging the books, so I'm happy.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that, as a comic writer, that having physical copies is nice. The ComiXology deal is amazing too. I'm a digital person anyway. Like, I love, as you can see behind me, if you're watching this too, I have a number of comic books. And what you can't see on the other side of this recording studio is my long boxes and short boxes. And I love physical holding, but in the same sense, I would say a good portion of my comic book reading is via digital. So I either read a ComiXology or I get advanced PDFs or things like that, because I like to lay in bed when my wife's sleeping and have a backlit iPad where I can read from. So I'm a huge fan of ComiXology originals, but I still am kind of the person. I mean, I had Mark Bernardin on here who wrote Adora in the Distance on a ComiXology original, but then it also was released in trade. So I have the trade as well because I'm like, I need to physically hold it. But I'm a big fan of digital. However, you can't go to cons or go to sign someone's digital comic book. That's a little weird. So it is nice to have these physical comic books coming out on the market.
Yeah, I like both, but I'm definitely prefer the physical. It's just something magical about it, right? It's hard to describe, but there's nothing sexy about a PDF, right? And then when you finally get for me, when with something like You've Been Counseled or Indigo Children, when I worked on these books for years, when I finally get to hold the single issue in my hand, it's like that finally feel like a real thing to me, right? It's something that exists in the world. And I don't think you really get that with digital. It's just like it's very cold kind of in a way.
Yes.
But it's also accessible, right?
Yes, it is. But I mean, it's accessible. But I'm a big fan of, like, for a while there, I don't know if Marvel's still doing it, but they're doing the whole like digital codes where you can get the code if you buy the new comic book. You pull the little tab off of it and you get the code. I did that when I was first getting back into comics back in the 2015, 2016, which was nice because I could own the physical copy, but I could also read the digital. And so I had an option where I was on that. But people, I mean, something like Youth, for example, you could buy the trade right now from Dark Horse. So you still can get the physical, even though it came out on ComiXology. So you have the best of both worlds right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But you obviously, are have a number of comic books out. How did this all start? How do you a fan as a young kid? Did you grow into comic books? I mean, you're not that old either, so it's not like you've been doing this for millions of years. You've been doing it for a little while though. So how, like, what's your origin story? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I started, I think, just reading when I was about 10 or 12. I went to the comic store with my uncle, my dad, my cousin, and got a bunch of books. And that was sort of like Jim Lee was drawing Batman then. Brian Bendis was doing some his Marvel stuff, Daredevil, and I was like kind of like blown away by it. And was really into it when I was sort of, it was probably like between 10 and 12. And then sort of as I got a bit older, I fell out of it. And then in high school, a friend lent me Preacher and a bunch of, Mark Miller stuff and
Mhm.
the stuff Bendis was doing at Marvel with Avengers. And I got really into it and was sort of became obsessed with comics and wanted to become a comic writer and do all that stuff and make my own books. And then so I started just basically working from, when I graduated high school to start self-publishing stuff and getting stuff out there, and eventually started getting stuff, published at places like Dark Horse, Boom, and then really just sort of almost the last, 9 or 10 years been working in some degree in the comic space.
It's funny to talk to people. Kyle Stark started really doing a lot of his stuff later on in his life and so on and so forth. For you to say you've been doing comic books for 10 years, is funny because you're not. You said you're still fairly young, so it's like you 10 years of doing comic books is like you're gonna by the time you retire from doing comic books, you're gonna have 50, 60 years under your belt.
I mean, I started when I was 20. I'm about 30 now, so
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely like I definitely got started super young, but I
Mhm.
think it was just like had like a fire under my ass to do it,
Yes.
and I went out and did it. So I don't know, it's definitely like yeah, it's kind of weird when you're start doing comics and you're so much younger than everyone, but like now finally it's a bit more normal for me. I was just kind
Yeah.
of like that kid for a while there. It was funny.
But yeah, I mean, so we want to get into you've been canceled a little bit, but before I get into that, so you did a bunch of books at Dark Horse. You now have gone to Image. What makes the decision? Do you just pitch these books around other? I mean, so like Indigo Children is at Image right now, correct? And you have It's Only Teenage Wastelands at Dark Horse. You've had other books, obviously you have ComiXology books, but like Tomorrow's, Wyrd, those books are over at Dark Horse. What makes the decision on which publisher you're going to go with?
Really just like depends on the book and what I want to do with it, right? Like Indigo Children, it was the same team. We did an Image book a few years ago, Olympia,
Mm-hmm.
and we were looking to do something new, so it kind of made sense to share it with Image, right? We
Mm-hmm.
already had that relationship, and then the other books, sometimes certain books just feel like more of a fit for certain publishers. So it really just depends.
That's I mean, and then you have obviously I said you've been canceled coming out at Mad Cave, which is nice. It's your first book at Mad Cave, and those people are amazing. Like I said, we talked a little bit off the top, but we talked before we started recording. The team at Mad Cave has been a crazy, and this is not anything to put down. I love the team at Dark Horse. Caitlin over there doing their PR stuff, and Daniel Strobon has been on the podcast talk about Dark Horse. Dark Horse is a great company to deal with as well. But Mad Cave has been like the elite to me right now. They are very communicative with people like myself. They are very good at marketing your books and things like that. So, did You've Been Canceled? Was it like a pitch to them, or did they contact you and want you to do a book, and then this is where it came from?
No, I don't. We'd already done two issues of the book in black and white. I've been working on it for a couple of years, or maybe a year or so. Once I showed it to them, and I got introduced to them by a friend who was working with them and was speaking very highly of them. And I met with them sort of generally, and we talked a bit about doing something. And I sent them a few ideas, and this was kind of the one that I was like, well, there's no way they're gonna do this one because it's just like the craziest one,
Yeah.
right? But they went for this one, and have been really supportive of it, and great to work with. So, been like you said, I can only really express positive things about them. I've been very impressed so far.
It's like I said, just the way I mean, Mark London has been on the podcast too to talk about Mad Cave stuff, but just the way they communicate back and forth. They have Melissa over at Don't Hide helping them doing their PR and stuff like that. So just a great team, and it just seems like they know they're doing the right things, and how long that can last and still be the same way, we'll see. But I'm hoping it stays a long time because I really like dealing with Mad Cave in that sense. But so You've Been Canceled. It's kind of a crazy out there kind of idea. It's I'll read the solicitation right here. In the near future, cancel culture means more than just losing your job. It could mean your life. The world's premier entertainment event is canceled. A live streamed program where elite bounty hunters called cancelers kill individuals whose society have voted to cancel following heinous actions or offenses. Our story follows Roland Endo, the world's number one ranked canceller. Because of his status, Roland lives in a constant state of paranoia with targets on his back. And that comes out June 7th, I believe, on Mad Cave Studios. And then the second issue will come out in July. It's a 4-issue miniseries. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Four issues. And that's with Kevin Castanerio. Do you know how to say his last name?
Castanero. Yeah, it's
Okay.
Kevin Castanero's the artist.
Yeah,
The colorist is Jason Wordy, and then it's lettered by Micah Myers.
all-star letterer right there. I feel like Micah's name is on everything nowadays. But
Works
yeah,
hard,
it's kind of out there, but also not. It's kind of relevant too, in the same sense that if this would have come out 15 years ago, it might not have been as relevant as it is nowadays, to the point where the quote unquote cancel culture it is prevalent, and the idea that you could just vote or have someone canceled and killed from these bounty hunters. How did you come up with this idea?
I don't know. I sort of just it's just the way my head works. But I just had the idea for the book one day, and I got really obsessed with it because I think it's a really cool high concept and is lends itself to sort of which once you read the book, people see it's a mix of sort of this visceral, brutal action, but also these really funny moments, and that's kind of stuff I love. And sort of Kevin was the perfect artist to bring on for it. I'm always trying to make books that like personally I would be excited to read. And so like having a great artist like Kevin drawing your book, especially when it's colored by someone like Jason, who's
Yeah.
also a huge talent in his own right, it's just it makes the concept sing and just I think really great comics.
I've been a fan. I'm obviously, if most people could see me, I've been reading Indigo Children, and it's always teenage. It's only Teenage Wasteland, as well as other stuff from you. So you've always been able to partner with really great artists. Is this something that you pick, the artist, or is this something that Mad Cave came to you and said, we have a artist for you?
No, I find the artist pretty much on
Okay.
all my. I'm like very picky about it because I like you said,
Yeah.
if you don't have a good artist on your comic, then who cares really? It's like go write
Yes.
a novel, right? So it's like yeah, I'm pretty competitive. I feel like I have to my I know I have great ideas, but I'm like I have to have the best artist drawing them. So I'm always trying to work with super talented people like Kevin.
Yeah. And it's there's some moments in it which is fun and gritty and out there, and then there's moments you turn the page and there's eyeballs flying at you, which is pretty crazy. Some epic kills in the first issue, at least, that people could get excited about. It's funny. Did you ever see the episode of Orville where they had this like I like likes and dislikes for people when they committed a crime? It was a similar idea where there was like this episode. It was, I don't know, season 4 or whatever it was, season 3, and someone did something wrong and they could do that, say not kill them, but it like puts them in jail, whether or not someone liked it or disliked the fact that they did something wrong. And it reminded me a lot like that, but like to the next level, to the point where someone actually dies and gets killed. But it's not as simple as what some people may have created this idea from, which is people can just kill people if you don't like them. This is like this actual bounty hunter. There's actually a team of people, and that it's filmed for a TV show is even funnier in that sense too. So there's just like so many elements that are going into it that makes it so interesting. It also, because of the fact that it's a streamed, canceled show, could this become something more? You think is this something that people could see being a television show based around one, canceled person each episode?
Oh yeah, I mean I think it would make a great TV show or movie. So we'll see what happens with that.
Obviously, you might be talking about things too. Obviously, we don't know about that behind the scenes, but I personally think when I went to Reddit, I was like, this is a great comic book standalone. It's going to be a great 4 issue series. If that's all it ever becomes, awesome, because that's what you're in it for in the first place. I'm guessing is creating good content that people want to read.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think there's sometimes a misconception because like I have a very good track record with my stuff getting option that people just think, oh, it's just, phoning it in or whatever. But it's like, no, it's like I'm trying to make the best comics. The reason why stuff gets optioned so much is because I'm better than 98% of the people making comics. We're making like the best comics. And when you do that and you go to a studio or whatever, and you're like, hey, look at all the stuff I made, and it's better than all the other stuff that everyone's sending them, they take notice of that, right? So
Mhm.
like this idea that I'm just like shitting out ideas or whatever to
Yes.
and it's not too many people who say that, but some of them, it's like sometimes they review the book and be like, "This is just a movie pitch." I'm like, "Well, we worked on this for like 3 years before we even, you know, it came out and we showed anybody. So it's not just a movie pitch. It's
Yeah.
like you can tell when people do that. It's they're not. If I was doing just movie pitches, I wouldn't be writing like 20 panel pages
It's
or
just,
doing or doing all the stuff I do in Indigo Children with the page layouts and stuff. It's like I would just be shitting out
yep.
book after book. So it's
It-
anyways, that's a
it-
bit of a tangent, but I just
yeah.
like I love comics. That's my first love, and like I just want obviously I want as many people as possible to read our stuff. So a good way to do that is if you can try and get the stuff made into other things. But like my first love and my priority is making awesome comics.
And people do see that sometimes an easy, not easy, I say easy, a way to get in their film or project made into a movie or TV show, because so many things are being made from the world of comic nowadays in TV shows. But let's be honest, you really can tell when someone's really just trying to farm something out to get to the point where it can be made into something more and they can forget about the comic book. You obviously have done comic books for 10 years now and you've created comic books. you've created some great comic books that people like to read. Period. If it gets made into TV shows or movies, we're all excited to see your comic put on the big screen. But let's be honest, real comic book fans are here to read comic books and look at comic books in the first place. So you're doing a good job with that. So let's keep that going, okay?
Yeah, I agree with you. And also, I think like the thing too with his most of these movies and TV shows, it's great that they bring people uh awareness of the material, but
Mhm.
like 99% of the time the comics are better than them, right? It's like uh the movies or the adaptations always seem to be missing something, right? And it's like they're never as good as the comics because I think just the medium of comics, there's something so unique about it that's sort of impossible to replicate in TV and film, right? I think there's
Yeah.
something like Alan Moore talked about a lot. And he's a bit more grumpy than me, just a little bit, and a bit crazier than me, I think. But he's really true when he says like, yeah, you can't replicate the experience of a comic on the screen.
You know, you can't. It's cool to see. It's one of those things that's like really cool to see. It almost brings to the pop to people outside of comics, the idea that comics are a real thing and they're worth reading. To see that on like someone sees it on TV who don't know comic books, it's kind of cool. And like I said, it brings people into it. But in the same sense, a lot of us are just happy enough to have our comic books made because we've seen recently adaptations that have not worked out very well. I mean, same thing with like when people talk about video games versus movies. Has there very many video games that have been made into movies that are actually good? Very few. That.
I mean, like, I'd rather read Creature than watch the
Yes.
watered down, diluted version of it, right? Like, I think there's some cases where, like, with the Sin City movie, where they just perfectly brought Frank Miller's world to life, and then there's other stuff where it's just like this is just like a way shittier version
Yes.
of an already
Yes.
great thing. Uh, so and I'll put that back on myself because I don't want to seem like I'm insulting anyone, but I approach my stuff the same way. I'm just like a lot of the times people come to you with ideas or takes these big hack screenwriters who get paid all this money and they just pitch me the most dog shit version of an already great idea I've had. And I'm like, well, why the fuck should you get paid a bunch of money to make the shittiest possible version of my thing when like it already exists well. Like, let's get someone who actually has a few brain cells to work on this, right? So I'm
Well,
not
is
here
that
to,
you're writing? You're in the
ruffle
writers'
a few
room, right?
feathers.
You're in the
Yeah,
writers'
like
room for youth, right? Is that what you're doing? Like, you're also working on
yeah,
the youth
working
adaptation.
working on a couple shows right now,
Okay.
but yeah, it's happened to me on other stuff where it's like basically because I've been doing this since I was younger, like we talked about. Over the years, I've probably sold like 10 projects to Hollywood based on my stuff, right? Like a lot. Uh, Basically, other than like Mark Miller, sold more than just anybody. And yeah, some of them they just die because the studios and stuff bring on the biggest fucking idiots.
Yeah.
They just shit out a draft to collect a paycheck, and it's just like now I've gotten to a point where I tell everyone I work with, I'm like, won't work with people who I don't, believe in. It's like I don't care how much clout or what movie you wrote. If you don't have a good take on our property, then you're not working on it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, is that something that you do? Talking about selling and optioning your stuff. Is that one of those things that you'd like to be part of the actual adaptation if it's being optioned?
it depends. Like on a lot of the things I have been
Okay.
a part of, like we're talking about youth. There's
Yeah.
another one right now that I'm writing on. But the thing is we have so many ideas and stuff. It's impossible for me to write every single one. So I'm just
Mm-hmm.
trying to work with talented, hardworking people. Really, is all it is. I just approach it as like a viewer. Is this going to result in a show that I would watch? And if the answer is no, then it's probably not the right person for the job, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's you're only one person. If we as comic book fans want to continue reading your comic books, you can't always be in a writer's room either. You need to be behind the desk writing a book for us as well. We're selfish and we want that. but so you've been canceled is a little bit different also than your other stuff that you've been. I would say a lot bit different than all the other stuff that you've been doing, or most of the stuff that you've been doing. More recent books have dealt with almost like coming of age or children or teenagers, whereas this is an adult, and this is facing the future, and very violent. What do you see? Do you compare this to anything else you've done before?
Well, I think it's pretty unique, but I think like what kind of happened is that I had these ideas for a lot of these books, and for whatever reason, a lot of them, the teen ones, just ended up coming out alongside each other. But like that's not really what I'm focused on
Mm-hmm.
or exclusively doing. So I think it's nice for this one to that it is a bit different, and it kind of shows a different side of the writing because I have so many different ideas and sort of stuff I'm working on. It's nice to just put something a little different out there.
And so this book comes out June 7th, like I mentioned, over at Mad Cave Studios. We're recording it on FOC Day, so people will be able to miss that. But it doesn't mean you can't go to your LCS and grab it. So make sure you grab a copy of it on that day. What as you rest and you're writing more comics and doing things, what does a typical day look like for you?
It's really like varies because some days it's I wear a lot of different hats. Like some days it's like I have to finish a script for an artist, and so that's priority number one. But a lot of other times it's like I have a bunch of meetings I have to take, and then got to oversee the colors and the letters and doing more of the editorial stuff and just approving things. And so it's yeah, it's a many headed beast, but a lot of it just starts with just getting up early enough and just getting into it and trying to knock out as many pages as I can in the day, and then doing the other putting out the other fires as they come up.
Do you try to keep like a Monday through Friday, or are you working every day?
Well, I try not to work on the weekends because it if you don't take time off, it
Mm-hmm.
contributes to like a burnout. But like I do always end up doing some work pretty much each day, right? It's kind of like a less intense work schedule on the weekend, but it kind of always ends up coming up in some form.
And it makes sense. I mean, if you're going to want to do this for a number of years too, it makes more sense to have some sort of boundaries and things like that too. But you have to have at least loose boundaries. I mean, I'm a creative director during the day for a brewery, and I know that there's weekend stuff, that there's crunch time, that I need to get stuff done, but I still set boundaries on it. So that it burnout is a thing. It's definitely a thing, and so hopefully you keep time to make sure you relax and either watch some TV or get outside and do something. But the the comic book that stands out the most for you right now, what out of the three books that are, so like obviously this one's coming out on June 7th, and you have It's Only a Teenage Wasteland. Is that one wrapped up? I forget. Are we done with that? How many issues is It's
Yes,
Only a Teenage?
it's so like it's sort of a different model. That one,
Okay.
the first miniseries is done, and the trade paperback's out in a couple of months, and then we're sort of ironing out details to come back to
Okay.
it. So we will have news on that soon.
Okay, cool. And then Indigo Children is on, it's issue 2 is either just out or is coming out. I forget on that one. I was supposed to do my research on this, but I didn't. Indigo Children. And then you got this one coming out. What else? I mean, you have your ComiXology, your stuff going on at ComiXology. Is there another book going to be coming out on ComiXology, or is it going to be Youth Volume 2? What's going on over at ComiXology?
Well, there's a bunch of new ComiXology books to come out.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, April 26th is when Indigo Children number 2 dropped. I forgot about that. I have that one behind me. So we can finish this up here a little bit too. So you had obviously the honors of being a 30 under 30 person, and it's one of those things that's like it's always going to be attached to you, right? I mean, forever, it's going to be someone's going to be talking about the fact that you were a 30 under 30. It's like someone makes a New York Times bestseller. They do it once, and for the rest of their life, they're always a New York Times bestseller. No matter if they made a bunch of crappy books after that, they're still that. What was that honor like? I mean, obviously, it's been a couple of years ago now, or a little while ago now, but what was that honor like to be able to name 30 under 30 for Forbes?
It was cool. I mean, I it's a it's hard to explain because I don't want to seem crass or like unappreciative,
Yeah.
but I don't really I care about stuff like that because it'll get more people reading the books
Mm-hmm.
and will get me advance my goals in comics and publishing and in getting TV shows and stuff made. But as an individual, I don't really care about it.
Well,
That's
I
not
can
what I'm
understand
supposed
that.
to say, but you still just wake up and you get out of bed and you exactly the same. So just like that's my honest answer. So like I
It,
don't it's not changed really anything. Honestly, very pretty much no matter what happens to me, I feel exactly the same, right? It
yeah.
doesn't even matter. So it's just whatever. Indigo Children's like most successful book I've ever done. Still feel exactly the same the way I did before it came out. It's like you expect to feel better that you're gonna get some sort of magical happiness from the new things. It's just like, no, I'm just like, okay, let's get to work on the next thing. It's just I don't know. It's maybe it's just me, but it's just I
I can
just
see that.
think
I can see that.
like
Indigo Children, success of Indigo Children could also be just as beneficial to you in your career as a writer than a 30 under 30 award or a Eisner nomination or a Ringo
yeah, I
nomination.
mean
Like
just
it
like
all could be the same.
yeah, I guess I'm just saying it's all super nice and I'm super appreciative of it, but I'm just like I don't really think about it. You're just like I'm very like unsentimental about the about my career. I think writers are like almost less useful to society than like garbage men and stuff like that, which is not a very popular opinion for me to express, but I think people need to understand where I come from, background of more blue collar people and or people who like, work really hard to do stuff. So I don't I've had like all the pretentious stuff wrung out of me a long time ago. So I'm just grateful for what I do and I'm super appreciative of everyone who reads my stuff. And obviously like I'm proud and happy to accomplish such cool things, but it doesn't like I don't I don't get super high on it and
Yeah.
stuff like that,
Well, that's good though. It's a good thing to have. It's good to be that way as well. So, I mean, you've worked hard. We've seen that as fans of your writing and your books. You've worked hard to get where you're at. You weren't given anything, and that's a nice little thing there to have, in your pocket more than an award or some sort of thing like that. You work hard to bring things out there, and you've been canceled this coming June 7th over at Mad Cave Studios. You can get that at your LCS. What do you want people? Do you want people to buy it just to buy it? What do you want people to get out of this book?
Well, I think they'll just have fun with it. I just think it's a good comic. I think people read it and you know be, maybe reread it. I don't know. I try and make everything as good as possible. So if we read it a couple times, yeah, I'm just trying to entertain people. It's really all I can hope for, and just that they be stoked on the book. So I just hope people will check it out.
It's a wonderful book. Like I said, I've read issue 1 so far. There's page turner. It gets you involved in it. It gets you excited to see what happens throughout the book. The artwork's amazing from Kevin, and the colors. Who did you say the colorist was again?
Jason Wordy.
Yes, Wordy. That's who it was. Is a wonderful job on that too. And then also Indigo Children is on the market right now. It's only Teenage Wasteland. You can grab stuff on ComiXology with youth, and there's also other books like Olympia and Wyrd out there. The Tomorrows. So that was available still on, like, you can buy back issues of the Tomorrows on Midtown Comics. I was like, oh, look at that's kind of cool. Still available out there. You can grab those. But yeah, so grab all that stuff from Curt here and be on the lookout for stuff that's going to probably be on TV at some point, hopefully, with things like youth and other stuff as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, your busy day, to come here and chat with us over here at the podcast, and check out Curt on social media as well, and follow him on Twitter and stuff like that. But I really appreciate it, Curt. Enjoy the rest of your day, get a lot of work done, and we'll talk again soon. Sound good?
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.